I'm doing a very deep sort of like desert hot hike right now. I have those moments of gratefulness every single day, in like the early hours of the day and then the late hours of the day. The heat of the day, I'm not feeling that grateful when I'm just pouring sweat, chugging Gatorade, not feeling super grateful then. But yeah, every dawn and every dusk, I'm reaffirmed that I made the right choice for myself. Now I'm spending my time in a way that my future self will be proud of.
What do you do when you come out as LGBTQ and love the outdoors? What do you do when you see the outdoor space ruled by older white cis men and desire a diverse community of outdoor lovers? Accept it, change it, create it. I am Justin Yoder, and this is LGBT Outdoors. Happy Pride Month, everyone. This is Justin, and we're glad you're tuning in for another episode of the LGBT Outdoors podcast. Got my husband, Patrick Thompson, with me tonight.
Hey, everybody. Happy Pride Month.
It's been a busy Pride Month around here.
For real. and it's good. It's amazing. It's fantastic. But it's a lot. And I imagine this is the same with any queer nonprofit or group out there, as they are just busting their butts to be present and get their name out as many Pride festivals as possible. Just in North Texas, in the last month so far, we've done 1, 2, 3, 4.
I think more than that, but
it sure feels like it. And I know you're going up to Denver for Pride. I know our team in New Hampshire is tackling a handful of those Pride events, and it's fantastic. There's so many people that we talk to, and I've been looking for something like this, or like I've seen you online. Like, what is it exactly that you do? And so I've developed like this really strong 30-second elevator pitch that it just sort of came out of repeating like the same thing over and over again. And it's so much fun. There's so many like colorful, vibrant people out there being authentic and themselves. And it's really like this amazing thing of beauty.
Yeah, totally agree. It is a lot of work. And it's not just June. It's like May leading up to it is a lot of work, getting all the applications in and signed up and everything like that, and connections and figuring out what banners and supplies needs to go to where and what ambassadors and team members and all of that. Then running all the booths through June and then following up with everyone and all the contacts through July. But it is, like you said, so worth it, and helping get people connected to what we're doing and building this community. So it's awesome and it's worth it. We were just at Fort Worth Pride this past Saturday and had a great time over there, and was just amazed at how many people came up to our booth, saw us, and was interested in what we were doing, and wanted to learn more. So yeah, continuing to build that community and getting everybody out there. In celebrating with Pride Month, I think this just happened as an accident when this all started with the Instagram. But June is our 5-year anniversary for LGBT Outdoors, which is pretty amazing.
Cow. That is wild.
It is. It's been it's been a roller coaster for sure. And just thinking back on, some of the things that we've done in 5 years, we've started the ambassador program and have over 50 ambassadors around the country leading local chapter events. We did Outdoor Fest, which we're going to be doing our 5th one this year in Colorado. So if you aren't signed up for that, do, because I think we're getting close to 50% full on that.
Already?
Colorado in September 12th through the 15th. Dan Link from Naked and Afraid is going to be there. Brad Ryan from Grandma Joy's Road Trip is going to be there. Amazing. instructors and workshops and activities and high ropes course and in the Colorado Rocky Mountains. I mean, what else could you want?
I can't wait.
We've also got to speak to incredible organizations. The Houston Astros had us go down and share with them about LGBT outdoors. The U.S. Federal Trade Commission, just U.S. Forest Service. So many cool connections and networking that we've been able to do, and bringing education to a lot of these companies and organizations about the importance of inclusion in the outdoors while connecting our community to the outdoors. So it's been an incredible 5 years. We can't wait to see where we're going to be in another 5 years. Hopefully we're going to have our own, I'm going to say it on the podcast, but hopefully by then we're going to have our own LGBT outdoors campground or campgrounds. We'll see, but excited on developing that. But yeah, we're going to celebrate Pride, and celebrate our 5 years by asking people to take a minute and help us continue on with our mission. So if you're listening and you love what we're doing, consider donating to LGBT Outdoors this month and helping us celebrate, whether it's $5, $15, $25, $50, $500, whatever you want to throw at LGBT Outdoors mission with a 5 in it to help us continue. That would be amazing. And you can do that. Just go to lgbtoutdoors.com, click the donate button, and put in the notes. It's for our 5-year celebration, and enter what you would like to give and help us with our mission of connecting the LGBTQ community to the outdoors to each other.
And like that's awesome. And we're just talking about like all the Pride events that we're doing. Like that stuff is not cheap. With like our stickers and our flyers. And for everybody who's listening, and for everybody who has ever come to one of our events, you either saw us online or somebody told you about it. And that takes printouts and podcasts and graphic design and all of that stuff to get the word out. So if you are on board with what we're doing, a $5 bill would help us be able to tell somebody else about it, and to bring them in and introduce them or encourage them in the outdoor space.
Yeah, absolutely. So something to consider, and a great way to support and celebrate Pride Month. So I think
definitely
that would be awesome. Well, I think we should jump in with our guest today.
I think we should.
As always, I think that we have an amazing guest that I'm super excited to share with our listeners about. Have an amazing thru hiker that is going to be on today. And even if people aren't into thru hiking or know what even thru hiking is, I just think that her story is inspirational and really cool that people can draw things through. So today we have Lyla Sugar Harrod, is a sober, queer, transgender woman with over 11,000 miles of long-distance hiking experience. She is the first transgender woman to complete the Triple Crown of long-distance hiking, including the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, and the Continental Divide. Lyla has set the fastest known times, including the woman's unsupported fastest known times of New Hampshire's 48 4,000 footers. Lyla is also the founder of Trail QTs, a mentoring program for queer and trans first-time thru hikers. Lyla shares her story as a way to connect with LGBTQ people in the outdoors and to be a resource for cisgender people who are interested in understanding the trans experience. If you'd like to follow her on Instagram, you can at Seltzer Skelter. Welcome to the podcast, Lyla.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for taking the time to join us. You are very outdoors right now. So to all of our listeners, if this isn't the best quality, in a way it kind of is, just because she's actually on a trail and outdoors right now having a blast. I am glad that we were able to catch her when she had some cell phone reception. But thanks for taking the time for joining us and celebrating Pride Month with us. I think that happy Pride. I think this is going to be awesome, and our listeners are going to get a lot out of this. But let's start off back when you were a kid, however far back you would like to go, and tell us a little bit about who you are, where you grew up, how you grew up, love for the outdoors came about. We'd just love to learn more about you and what led to who you are now.
Sure, yeah. Well, so I grew up, I was a 90s kid, growing up in the North Shore of Boston in the suburbs. And yeah, I mean, the community I grew up in, like things like, you know, LGBTQ rights and everything, they weren't really something that was really discussed or even part of the discussion. So I mean, I grew up, feeling different than other kids, but it's hard when you don't have like the language or know the concepts to really identify with how you're feeling. So as a kid, I felt like I spent a lot of time trying to fit in with the other boys. I did a pretty good job, but it's funny. I remember like in high school, I remember looking, like at my friends, my guy friends, and thinking like, wow, like they are so good at like acting like guys, like because like that's my perspective, right? Is like turns out they weren't acting at all. Like they were literally just being themselves, and it wasn't this sort of like performance that you had to learn and recreate. So that's sort of how I was like identifying with masculinity and manhood growing up. And I mean, throughout my 20s, like I'd always been doing like gender exploration like as a kid and through my 20s and everything, but I still wasn't really aware of the term of even, the idea of being trans or transgender for quite a while. And I was also, like, to compound that, I was also in active addiction for a long time. I got sober when I was 30 years old. At that point, I had like just recently, maybe like a year before that, even like maybe less than a year, even realized that I was transgender. Like, had first said it to myself, like made that identification for myself. So yeah, I was 30. So once I got sober though, that's the first time that I actually had the like capacity and then the resources to actually like do something about it and to step into my own authenticity. So once I got sober, like I feel like my sobriety and my gender transition really go hand in hand. I could not have gone through my transition without my sobriety first. It takes a lot of strength and it takes a lot of you know, it's not an easy process. Like, remember, transition is not like a one and done kind of thing. It's an ongoing process that involves legal aspects, medical, social, professional, everything. Yeah, only once I got sober, I had that ability. So the first like 2 years of my sobriety. Oh, sorry, do you want to add something?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, there's so much to unpack. Like, I'm also in recovery, and I'm trying to put together like the weight and also like the process and the healing of trying to embrace sobriety and embrace your authenticity at the same time simultaneously. Like, that would have been like a lot for me to personally handle. Seeing you now, like out there kicking ass as a success story, not only as a trans person but also as a person in recovery, like I'm on the floor. I'm super happy for you because that's a big thing to work on. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that the outdoor aspect really sort of kicked in once I did have those two things, right? Like, so I mean, like you said, it is just a lot. It's a lot. So those first couple years, like establishing and becoming more stable in my sobriety and in who I am as a person and undergoing my gender transition and all that entails, that really was like all encompassing those first 2 years, I'd say. So it was like a full-time job on top of my full-time job. And so once I had done that, I felt like I had finally, yeah, it's a lot. So like once I came out, I felt like I had sort of reached a point where I was more comfortable in my sobriety and in who I am authentically, so that all of a sudden now I do have this time and space to step into the outdoors in a way that I'd always wanted to. So you asked about, like, my connection to the outdoors. I wasn't brought up hiking as a kid. I went on like a couple. I think I went on one backpacking trip and a couple day hikes, but really that wasn't really a big part of my story. I was like a team sports kind of thing. My dad had always sort of pushed me into team stuff. And once I got in my like early 20s, I'd moved to Seattle, and I had a friend who sort of took me out and showed me the ropes and lent me gear and all that stuff. And I really fell in love with backpacking at that point out in the Northern Cascade and the Olympics. So then when I moved back to the East Coast a couple of years later, I was sort of like just ready and raring to go. Like I had that sort of fire lit in me to spend time in the outdoors. But so then, like there's only so much you can do when you're in active addiction when it comes to the outdoors. Sorry, there's some wind blowing here. So I had always wanted to do like larger, bigger, longer trips. But there's only so far you can go when you can't be that far away from a bar or a liquor store. Just like physically your capacity and your resources are lowered. Like the financial burden of being in active addiction is really heavy. So all those things sort of kept me from doing the types of things that I felt like I wanted to do, but I couldn't imagine a world in which it was possible. And so once I did get sober, once I did establish that, that stability after those first couple of years, doing something like the Appalachian Trail seemed like a perfect way to sort of celebrate this newfound authenticity and healthiness that I had, like a well-rounded life. So I wanted to celebrate, and I wanted to do something big, because I sort of figured this out and I wanted a big change in my life. And what better way than to sort of like close down, shut down your whole sort of, quote unquote, normal life and cash out your chips and get rid of your furniture, sell the car, and just get outside in a way that I had always dreamed of doing. And I found that once I got out there, I started the Appalachian Trail in 2021. That was my first through hike, and I was maybe 6 weeks into that first through hike, and I remember having a moment where I was just like, "This is for me. This is my thing." I feel so fulfilled and so right out here that I need to start reprioritizing the things that I value to center around spending more time doing that thing. And it just kind of snowballed from here, and now we're almost going on 4 years. This is my fourth year of sort of like full time, dirt bagging, and I don't regret a moment of it.
And so that's just to rewind and clarify. Like your first through hike was the Appalachian Trail. Is that right?
Yeah.
Like go big or go home, I guess.
And that was 2021, to reemphasize that. So like you were saying, 4 years ago, and you've hiked over 10,000 miles since 2021. That's right?
Yeah, I'm more like in the 11s to 12s now.
Nice. And you were the first trans woman to do the Triple Crown as well, right? As in that, in case people are listening and they don't know, that's the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, and the Continental Divide, which you've done obviously more than that now, but you were the first trans woman to be able to complete the three of those. And you've done it all within the last 4 years.
Yeah, I did one of the Triple Crown trails in 21, 22, and 23. I also worked in other trails before and after each of those hikes too, which is how I've sort of like amassed like a larger amount of miles. But I would also say, like, it could be that other trans women have completed it before, but I like to say the first known trans woman, because sometimes people aren't out and people aren't as public about their hikes. I just like to say the first openly sort of like known trans woman.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That's amazing. What was it that made you decide that you wanted to do through hikes? Like, I know that you touched on a little bit, and I think that it's amazing, and the health benefits to being outside is incredible, especially coming out of sobriety like you were. But did you see somebody else doing it and you were like, oh, that looks interesting? Or was it just this random thing that you were just like, yeah, I want to go on a crazy long hike and give it a shot?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I knew about the concept just from backpacking, like in the White Mountains. I had been never seeing some through hikers when I was on Franconia Ridge. You know, some like sweaty, smelly, sort of like feral looking humans, sort of like basically what I perceived to be sprinting past me on the trail. And I remember thinking they looked cool and asking somebody what they were doing. And, you know, I was vaguely aware of the Appalachian Trail, but I'd never met a through hiker knowingly before. But so how I like where I really got dead set on it, I should say, is okay. So remember 2020, early pandemic, those first like that first like week or two was such a strange time where I don't know how y'all spent it, but I was very much sort of like locked in my home. It almost felt like time stopped for those first few days. You know, day, night didn't really matter. You know, you just sort of glued to, you know, like the news or whatever it is. And I found that my reprieve during that time was watching, I was on YouTube and somehow I ended up on an Appalachian Trail through hiking documentary. I actually think it was my friend Julia Sheehan. She had a really great documentary about the Appalachian Trail. And I just got, and especially at that time where you feel so confined, if anything, we all felt I personally felt a bit imprisoned those first few days. It was scary. So seeing somebody out there and like in nature in the most in-depth way, in a way that just like was really appealing to me, and the freedom, you know, when you feel confined, you feel like you don't have freedom. Seeing somebody out there being free is a really huge motivator. So once I, you know, like I saw like one documentary, and then next thing you know, God, I probably watched 2 or 3 like in one night, you know what I mean? Like 6 hours. Sat there just like eyes glued to my laptop. But yeah, after that, I kind of walked away just being like, this is it, you know, like I watched some on different trails. I watched one on the Continental Divide Trail, and I watched one on the Harrod Trail as well. And those became sort of like the objects of my affection. I really knew that I wanted to do the Continental Divide Trail and Hayduke, since they were a form of challenge that I couldn't even comprehend yet at that point in my skill set. Obviously, I ended up getting there because I've hiked both of those now, but those were like a big deal to me early on.
So much to unpack, and I'm so excited to get to talk with you because there's so many questions. Like most people don't really have either the means or the gusto and bravado to take on like a massive through hike, like you know, any of them that you just imagine or you just mentioned. Because Appalachian Trail, on average, how long does that take to complete? If you were to go straight through, what is it, like 6 months?
I would say like average time is 4 to 6 months would be considered like, you know, within the realm of normal.
And I can't imagine doing anything on that scale for 4 to 6 months and leaving changed. I feel like having that experience with all the challenges and all the beautiful glory and just this stuff that you're experiencing that is human powered, I feel like that fundamentally alters, if not your person, but your perspective on the world. Would you agree?
Absolutely, I would agree. I would say that, you know, the biggest change I've ever undergone in my life was in that first 2 years where I got sober and changed my way of thinking through like a program of recovery. And then also through stepping into my like authenticity with my gender identity. That was the biggest sort of sea change I've ever experienced as far as my personal identity. But you're absolutely right that once I began through hiking, I mean, every single one of those experiences does change who I am. I believe if you talked to me, if I got to talk to myself, you know, back in 2021 or something, I might be surprised at what I thought was possible or what I was capable of, or what I believe about people in the world. You know, like I think that my perspectives on interactions with others has changed. I think that the things that I value have changed and refined even more than after I made that first decision to sort of like break my life down and step out into nature in a more full-time capacity. The things that I thought were I definitely wanted before, I realized that I really reshuffled and reprioritized. I value things a little bit differently now.
It'd be hard not to. As we're listening to you share, like we can hear birds in the background. That's actual birds. We're not adding sound effects. Like, it'd be hard to not, sit there and have this moment of appreciation. Like, the jealousy is real.
I have the you know what? I'm doing a very deep sort of like desert hot hike right now. So what I'll say is I have those moments of gratefulness every single day, in the early morning, in like the early hours of the day, and in the late hours of the day. The heat of the day, I'm not feeling that grateful when I'm just pouring sweat, chugging Gatorade, not feeling super grateful then. But yeah, every dawn and every dusk, absolutely. I'm reaffirmed that I made the right choice for myself. Now I'm spending my time in a way that my future self will be proud of.
That's awesome.
So cool.
You mentioned that it's hot during the day right now. Can we talk a little bit about what you're doing right now? Because you're doing the Divide to Crest route. And can you share about that and what it is that you're doing actually?
Yeah, thanks. So the Divide to Crest route is a route that I dreamed up this past winter when I was locked in my home. I was sort of dreaming, and I was at a point where after getting off the Continental Divide Trail this past year, I felt like I had sort of completed my original set of objectives with hiking and the things that I wanted to get out of it. Because remember I said I really wanted to do the Hayduke and the Continental Divide Trail. Those were my kind of big two. So after I'd done those, I was like, okay, well, what's going to feel fulfilling for me moving forward? The only way that I would be comfortable continuing to live as a sort of a, quote unquote, full-time through hiker would be as if I took on a project that I felt deeply, like motivated by, and something that I felt like I really had to do. And I had spent a lot of time thinking about a lot of pre-existing trails. The Pacific Northwest Trail was one that came up for me for sure. There's a few desert trails that I wanted to do: the Oregon Desert Trail and the Bogey and Rim Trail. I like the idea of doing the desert trails, but they're both kind of short, and I started sort of like placing them on a map and then looking at what was in between and seeing, playing around with different ways that I could connect those two objectives that I had. And I realized it was actually, they were really well placed because I was able to string together a bunch of, like, using some trails and routes that I had already completed. I was able to go through and hit on a couple of my favorite spots from those trails that I had done, while also taking myself on these new routes that have been calling to me and offering me the additional challenge of needing to connect those routes by creating my own routes. So I created these theoretical routes on Gaia over the winter to connect everything together. And obviously now that I'm out here, I'm finding that theory and practice are two very different things, and I'm making all sorts of adjustments. But a lot of private property out here that is not listed as private on the map, but it just provides a whole new set of challenges for me. It's so much different to do something than what people perceive as like a traditional trail, like the Appalachian Trail or something, where there's, blazes to follow, there's pre-existing maps, there's so much information about the resources available on the trail. But what about when, you're creating your own route and you see a spring marked on the map? Well, it's the middle of June in Nevada. Are we sure that spring is going to be working? Sorry, not working. Is it going to be flowing? Is there definitely going to be water there? Like, I had that problem yesterday where I was really looking forward to a spring. I was running low on water, and like I said, it was about 100 degrees and fully exposed. And the spring did not exist. It was just dried up. Thankfully I had held a little bit of water in reserve, which I always do to make sure that if I do need to, I can get to another source safely. But yeah, it's not a very comfortable thing when you're running low on water and it's hot in the middle of the day in the desert.
You mentioned this a little bit, and I was curious about it, but like I was wondering how much of this is public land versus private land, and then how do you navigate it when it comes to private land? Like, are you in communication with the landowners and trying to get permission that you can do this? And like, it seems like a huge undertaking. Like, it sounds like at the beginning it's pretty simple, you're just connecting these two trails and the way you go, but like, obviously when it comes to the logistics of it, it's a whole nother thing. So how does that work, private land versus public land, and navigating that, especially when you're not expecting it because of what it says on your map?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and one that I deal with all the time. The quick answer is that I only use public land whenever possible. I have run into there was one situation where I was leaving Sedona, heading towards Flagstaff, and creating a route of my own, and I ended up at a like a gated community kind of thing. And I was looking at the map, I'd sort of backed myself into a corner where really the only thing I was able to do was to sort of like skirt through it real quick. I just went as fast as I could, but that's not something that like that was, if there had been another way around, then that's what I would have done. And so what I do is I keep notes about where I'm going and what was private, and if there's any alternatives that I can suggest to people moving forward. So what I'll do is after I'm done with this route, I'll go back and adjust my map set so that I can share it with people in the future. I know that the way I went, ended up being private. So I need to create an alternative that I'm sure is public for people, and if people do want to recreate what I'm doing. But that was the only time, like there's been plenty of other times when I run into private land, but I'm usually not as backed into a corner. I'll just find another way around, right? Even if I have to bow out around and do some extra miles or something, I'll pretty much always do my best to avoid going on private land. That was just that one thing where I really didn't have any other option. Of course, I want to be respectful of private land whenever possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk. Well, I should have said this at the beginning because we have a wide variety of people that listen to our podcast. So if you're not familiar, we mentioned doing through hikes, which is the majority of what you do. So on a through hike, you start at one spot and end up in a totally different spot. So you're hiking all the way through. It's not like you go in and you come back out to the same spot that you started. So with all of that in mind, and you're hiking thousands of miles, I know that you could do a whole podcast on just your pack probably, but can you talk about the key essentials, what it looks like starting to put together the key equipment and supplies that you need, how it works picking up food? And I'm curious too about like the weight of your bag, because obviously you want to cut that down, and like every ounce counts whenever you're trying to do that, and considering what you're taking with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as far as the sort of essentials in my pack, people usually talk about the big three, right? Like your sleep system, your shelter, and then your pad. My bag, I carry a 35-liter Deuter Air Contact Ultra. Yeah, it's I always use Deuter packs. 35 liters is a really good size for me, especially like in the desert where I'm not going to be carrying like big heavy clothes, or I'm not going to need a ton of technical equipment. So that's my pack. My sleep system, I use a Catabatic Flex 22 degree, which is getting a little bit warm at this point, but sometimes, it does get cold out in the desert. But yeah, I've been pretty much comfortable in that so far. And then I just use like for a sleep pad, I just use there's a little 1/8 inch thin light Gossamer gear pad. I lay that down, and then there's a Nemo switchback, which is, that orange folding sleep pad that people might recognize. I found a half of one of those in a hiker box on the CDT, and I've been carrying that as well. That's my like little extra comfy, and have some eggshell padding underneath my shoulder so I don't wake up with sores on my shoulder. But I used to just use the thin light, just the 1/8 inch pad, and people thought I was a lunatic for that. And then my shelter. I use a Z-Pax Plex Solo, which is a single trekking pole tent that clocks in really light. Yeah, I found it really sturdy and held up to a lot of pretty strong winds and everything too. So yeah, I'm pretty dialed in with my big three there. I mean, you have to imagine at this point, like I don't even really think about my gear anymore, because it's they're an extension of me. I've been carrying a lot of the same exact stuff for a long time now. So it's not that hard for me to pack for a trip or for a through hike, because it's already ready to go. It's already in my head. I have like a gear list that I can scroll through and plug things out whenever I need to. So wait, okay, so that was the big three. What else were you asking? Oh, the pack weight, right?
Yeah, I was curious about what it weighs, and then also like how you navigate your food if you do food pickups in towns as you're going through. Curious about water too, because you were talking about the springs, which I know a lot of the through hikers purify water as they're going, which I imagine you would have to. But just love to hear kind of some of that and how you prepare for that.
Sure. So pack weight, I think I started this trip at about 12 pounds for my base weight. I'm probably down to around 10 pounds now, just with, like I got rid of, I had a mid-layer fleece that I don't need anymore. It's too warm. Yeah, and just some other things I've pared down throughout my time. But yeah, so somewhere in the 10 to 12 range is usually where I float. And then as far as resupplies, I every once in a while, like a friend will send me a care package or something to a town. But that's usually just for like treats and stuff. Like my friend sent me a bunch of whoopie pies, if you know what those are.
Yeah.
Those are like my favorite, and I miss them because you can't get them out west. So stuff like that. But my actual food, I tend to get at just little towns like a gas station, Dollar General. If you're lucky, an actual grocery store. But yeah, it's all just sort of like pre-prepared food. I cold soak, meaning I don't have a stove. I only quote unquote cook things that can just rehydrate on their own. So like one of my like primary staples would be instant rice, like minute rice. I find that rehydrates really well, and that I can combine a lot of different ingredients with it and get something that I'm happy with. I carry a lot of tortillas, peanut butter. I'm carrying a lot of honey right now. My diet is not healthy by any means. Oh, a lot of like prepackaged meats, like, like tuna or chicken or whatever it is. High in salt. Actually, this is a new one for me. Have y'all ever had pork rinds before?
Yeah.
I haven't had them, but I know what they are. Yeah.
You know what they are, right? I had never really messed
Yep.
with them before because they like kind of conceptually grossed me out, I guess. But I like on a whim randomly tried them this past winter and was like, these actually taste really good. They're just like really salty, bacon, crunchy chips sort of thing. And I looked at the macronutrients in it, and it's incredibly high in protein. I'm not recommending this for people on like a nice backpacking trip, but if you do just sort of need something that's affordable, salty, high in protein, weighs very little, pork rinds are actually an amazing long distance backpacking food. But they're really cheap, and like for one bag or so, there's almost 50 grams of protein for 4 ounces of weight, which might not matter to most people,
Wow.
but to me that's pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah. That's awesome. Then how do you handle your water situation? Because especially when it's hot, like where you are right now.
Yeah, I carry a lot of water. So I have capacity for 5 liters right now. I've gone up to 6. In some case, if I came across a really hot section, I would just, literally walk with a jug of water if I had to, if it couldn't really fit into my pack comfortably anymore. But basically, when you have a chance to stock up on water, you do. Like if you find a spring, I'm gonna hang out there. I'm gonna drink a liter or two, just while I'm there, and then I'm gonna carry out as much as I can. If I know that I have a guaranteed water source, like something that I know is a perennial water source, like a well-established creek or river or something like that, then I might not need to carry as much sort of like security water, like an extra liter or two, because I can be sure that water will be there. But if not, I will, like carry an extra like liter or two so I can make sure I can get to the next source. And then when I get to the water, I carry a Sawyer water filter. That's like you guys know the Sawyer squeeze water filter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I just use one of those, which requires pretty frequent back flushing when the water is like a cow pond or something like that. But I find it to be really effective. And for this trail specifically, with the water being what it is and having such unknowns, I'm also carrying a dropper of bleach, because that can be used for emergency purification as well.
Really, that's a new one for me. I haven't heard about using the bleach. Is that
Yeah.
a recommended source and
Is it recommended? I mean, I'm not a doctor, y'all, but
I guess it's better
but
than the
but what you can
alternative.
do, Yeah, like I'll tell you a situation that I would use it in, right? Like, so basically, if you put in 2 droplets of bleach into a liter of water, and I think it's wait like half an hour or something like that, then it will purify it to a point where it's safe to drink. A tiny little bit of bleach
Oh.
now and then isn't going to be a problem, but it would be useful for me if I imagine if I like hadn't seen water for a long time. I needed water, but the only water I came across that's happened to me in Arizona like has a dead animal in it, right? Like what if there's like a dead bird or something? That's what it was a dead bird. So if you need to take that water, well, I'll try and put it through the filter. Ideally, it goes through the filter. But at that point, if I know that there's something like really nasty in there, I'll probably throw some droplets of bleach in it too, just to make sure. It's super duper rare, but in this case where it is so like, hydration is a life or death issue for me, that then I want to make sure I have at least something sort of like a backup that I could use if I needed to, so I'm not reliant in case I did lose my Sawyer or it broke somehow.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That's a new one for me, but it makes perfect sense. Take your indoors outdoors with Spacious Skies Campgrounds, a collection of 15 campgrounds and RV parks spanning the eastern United States. Each location is unique, but all offer the perfect escape to the great outdoors if you're looking to spend quality time with your friends and family or simply need a scenic home base for your nearby adventures. Choose from RV sites, cabins, yurts, retro RV rentals, or tent sites, and enjoy on-site amenities that offer convenience, creature comforts, and fun. Visit spaciousskiescampgrounds.com for more information and easy online booking. We welcome and invite all campers to camp on with Spacious Skies Campgrounds. This episode of the LGBT Outdoors podcast is brought to you by the Monterey Bay Aquarium, where you can experience the wonder beneath the waves and celebrate your connection to the ocean. Join Monterey Bay Aquarium in advocating for a healthy ocean. Together, we can tackle climate change and stop plastic pollutions at the source. Sign up for the Ocean Action email to learn how you can protect the oceans that connect us all at montereybayaquarium.org/act. Do you have anything that you carry with you that are maybe more on the comfort side that you specifically enjoy taking with you that maybe isn't necessarily a key beneficial thing, but it's like this item or 2 items I really like to have with me?
Yeah, it sort of depends on the thru hike and everything. One that I'm carrying right now is black nail polish. I think that's like, okay, this is actually kind of relevant, especially with Pride Month and everything. Like, I think that comes when I think about like the outdoors and gender presentation in the outdoors. We're so much taught by the, sort of mainstream culture that outdoor clothing is androgynous, that presentation and femininity should be downplayed in the outdoors. Think about it. Like if like the girls, like if a woman has a bunch of makeup on or something like that, and she's in the outdoors, people might even sort of look at her funny, right? Or be like, well, why does she care about what she looks like or something like that, right? Like, and that's not how I feel about it. I feel that like gender presentation and authenticity doesn't care if I'm in the woods or not. Like, and granted, like you could say it's a practical matter or something like that, but this does not keep having black nail polish on does not keep me from performing or doing anything in any way that I want. And that's kind of how people, like it's all just sort of like made up with these like, sort of like fake rules about what you should or shouldn't be able to do. If you want to look cute in the outdoors, if you want to look STEM in the outdoors, do it, right? Like it'd be one thing if I was just going out for a single overnight or something like that, and I just didn't really care or whatever. But when I'm spending months out here, like a big portion of my life for the past few years, I spent backpacking. Am I supposed to bottle myself up and downplay my own authenticity and my own gender presentation? Just because of what, outdoor culture says? Like, no way. Like, I live out here. Like, I'm going to be myself even when I'm out here.
Yeah.
And then I guess one extension of that as well.
Love it.
We talked about the black nail polish. Sometimes I'll also carry a spare bottle of purple hair dye too. You gotta keep it bright, and keep my hair color bright. Like, when I get into cities, I'll use like more permanent hair dye or something. But if I find a Dollar General, they might have some purple hair dye that I'll throw in my hair just to, so I'm feeling my best.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, why not?
That's what I'm saying.
And like, it's, yeah, like, you're out there exploring, putting your physical self and your mental self like to the test. But when you were starting to get into all of this and kind of maybe planning for your first through hike, I came across a quote from Backpacker Magazine that you said in your research, you said, I wanted to make sure that there was a search result for trans women in the outdoors. And that really hit me because there's obviously not a whole lot of people out there, or there would have been like plenty of resources available. Like that's kind of what we're trying to do as LGBT Outdoors, is like just to provide a voice, to provide a face and some humanity to like who we are in the outdoor space. And so like you've kind of taken on, I don't want to say like an activism role, but to a degree, kind of being willing to step up and take up space as Lyla in the outdoors. How has all of that been? Have you butted heads with people? Have you been warmly received? What's that adventure been like?
Yeah, related to the wanting to be a search result. Yeah, that was my experience, that when I was researching the Appalachian Trail, I couldn't really find resources or any anecdotal experience of trans people, especially trans women in the outdoors, doing through hikes. There was a couple, related to hiking, but not really through hiking in the way that I was looking for. So from there, I started sort of like writing. I was writing for an outdoor website called The Trek when I first started, and I wrote a little bit about my experience as a trans person in the outdoors. I'll say that the friction that I see is primarily when in the online sphere, right? Like on social media, in the comment section, the blog posts or websites. Like that's where I see the most sort of like hate
where they
speech
can
and
hide behind the
language.
screen.
Yeah, when they can hide behind the screen, or they say something transphobic, or message me directly, or comment on one of my posts. Like, yeah, online that will happen occasionally. In person, it happens very, very rarely. At least as far as direct transphobia. I've generally found that people will treat you like a human being once they are able to humanize you and have that face-to-face interaction. So somebody who maybe, in their mind, they hate trans people. They think that I'm a groomer or a pedophile, whatever it is. But like once they meet me and realize I'm actually just sort of like a normal person that they can talk to, and maybe they even see a friend or a family member like in me, they can recognize that like I'm just like someone else they know. Then it's easier for people to humanize me and to treat me like as an equal. And I think that go ahead.
I would hope that would be the case. Like running into you literally on a trail, like I'm going to recognize any human as, oh my gosh, they're a badass. Because like, this is not something easy that we're doing. Like this is pretty out there. This is like an audacious act to put yourself to the test, and instantly, like unless you're a total dick, like you're going to have such mad respect from me to anybody that I would come across on a trail. Easy, hands down.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And like I think the one what I can say is that we were talking about direct transphobia and sort of like the negative interactions that you could have. I would say what I can't speak to though is, imagine if you and I were both hiking, say, the Appalachian Trail. If you walk into a hostel dressed the same as I do, like if you and I both individually, separately walk into a hostel or a business or restaurant, whatever it is, your experience and the way that you're treated, I'll never know if I'm actually being discriminated against, or if somebody's being ruder to me than they would have been to somebody else, right? Like you can't necessarily know because I can't see through their eyes for both interactions. Like you walking into some place that is, dominated by cisgender, heterosexual white men or whatever it is, or, like that type of space, like you might be received differently than I would be received. But in general, I wouldn't necessarily know that. So, you don't really know when you're being discriminated against. That's sort of the confusing part. But like I said, my interactions on the whole, on an interpersonal level, are very positive.
I love that. So I have another question that I'd love to get your opinion on. Through hiking, is that a solo or team sport?
But I don't know. I mean, both. It depends. It's a solo sport for me right now. But you also sort of like rely on the help of others sometimes. Like I've stayed with friends along the way and everything. So you might have people who are supporting you in that way. But you could also call it a team effort. I've also hiked with families before, and I really love that experience too. Where you all are sort of pitching in and coming up with a joint plan and working together to meet those like logistical objectives that come up and through hiking. It's whatever you want it to be, really.
Nice. All right. And the reason I ask is because like I've heard stories of like pretty intense, very strong and powerful community that kind of envelops around, especially like Appalachian Trail. I got people who've hiked it, and I also understand that there's trail names, which I understand that you have one, and I would love to know like how all that works and maybe like the origin behind your trail name.
Yeah, my trail name is Sugar, and it's just because like I eat like crap, like I have a gross diet, a lot of sugar on trail. Yeah, y'all. I mean, pork rinds and
Like,
sour gummy
what's,
worms out there. I'm telling you.
How do trail names work? Do you know like any of the history of that?
I don't know like where it came from necessarily. I'm assuming it probably originated on the Appalachian Trail, just because there's so much culture around industry around the Appalachian Trail. But yeah, I mean, usually it's just if you do something dumb or you end up getting known for something, like it doesn't take much out there to get thrown a trail name. Yeah, I would say like one important thing if you're thinking about through hiking, it's sort of like if somebody gives you like a nickname or something like that, you don't literally have to accept it. Okay. So if you're on your first through hike and someone tries to give you like, Dumbo as a trail name or something much worse, you do not have to accept it. You don't have to take like whatever somebody like throws at you, you can say yes or no. And yeah, so you totally have agency in what your name is going to be because, those names stick. So, think of it like whatever your trail name is, it's going to be for the rest of your life. And Sugar is the one that I can deal with because it is a pretty deep truth about myself. And it's pretty, and I'm pretty cool with that. It's not non-offensive.
Nice. I like it. It's sweet.
That's fun. Can you tell us about the Trail Cuties that you started?
Yeah. So sort of like as an extension of that, like not seeing myself represented in the through hiking community and the trans through hikers. Originally I wanted to see search results, but once I had gotten a few through hikes under my belt, I was realizing like I want to help encourage the queer and trans through hiking community to grow. Like we want to be more visible. We just want more of us out there. And, what would have really helped me in my early days of preparing for a through hike is just somebody to ask some like really, really real questions to that you cannot get information for online. Like, how do you take hormone replacement therapy on trail? Like what do you do when you're misgendered in the backcountry, right? Like all these experiences that queer and trans people have that a cisgender person might not have the same reference for. I think that just literally having a person to ask questions to, so you don't have to dig through and determine what is valuable, useful information online and what's not. Having a real person to talk to and to know that you're not alone. Where it can be kind of isolating before you get on trail. You are sort of removed from the community still. So having somebody who's like a direct connection who can answer those questions for you and to sort of be that almost like ambassador for the through hiking community and make sure that people feel welcome and feel safe and feel prepared for not just the physical challenges, but also the mental and emotional challenges that go along, especially with being a queer and trans through hiker. And so anyway, so that, the mentoring program is one that I started. We're in our second year. Originally, I was the only mentor, and I took on a bunch of people a bunch of them were doing the Pacific Crest Trail. They all finished, and I'm really proud of that. And like I stayed with one of my mentees in Phoenix. They live in Phoenix, and I stayed with them a few weeks ago. So not only do you have a mentoring relationship, but I'm also literally creating community for myself, right? I benefit greatly from this program as well, because people become my friends and become people who understand the thru hiking community how I do. Yeah, it helps grow that community. And then I'd also say that we're really grateful to have the sponsorship of a bunch of different companies who are willing to, we're all about not only, sort of rolling out that red carpet, reducing the anxiety that people might feel in answering questions, but we also want to reduce socioeconomic barriers to entry as well. So companies like Virgin Outdoor, Sawyer, Deuter, Thermarest, Smartwool. We've had a lot, Catabatic, Gossamer Gear. We had a lot of support from companies in the outdoors who are, they've been great. And, I am grateful for them, because a lot of them, they're not asking for much in return. That, how often you don't see very many times where companies are willing to step up and aren't, looking for something in return. And these people have been very flexible about it, and they want to respect people's privacy. They just want to support, these thru hikers. So I'm really grateful to the companies who have donated gear. We have everything donated from packs to clothing, sleeping bags, socks, just anything you can imagine has been put forth by these companies. So it definitely goes a long way to giving people high quality gear that they might not have access to otherwise. Wait, sorry.
Oh,
And then,
love that. That's awesome.
I think what I wanted to say about this year's group is that that basically this year it's expanded, so it's not just me anymore. Two of my queer thru hiker friends have also become mentors as well. So we all have our own mentees that we work with. So we have we've more than tripled the size of the program in 1 year, so that we can have further impact. And I think the cool thing about it is, and where I'm hoping to take it in general, is that we found that not everybody, like you said at the beginning, not everybody just wants to drop everything and go right for the Appalachian Trail or something like that, right? A lot of people don't have even like the basic experience yet. So, we've made a lot more space for people who are earlier on in their experience. Maybe they just want to get out there and see if they can do a 2 or 3 day backpacking trip, or get on into a section of the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail. It doesn't have to be burn your life down and get out there. There's a lot of ways to enjoy long distance trails and the thru hiking community. And it's been cool to see the mission and our mission expand this year.
So cool.
Love that. That's what we need. We need more representation, more people helping encourage our community to let them know that they can do this and help blaze a trail for them, and help them to be able to get out there and enjoy the outdoors as well. So I absolutely love that and what you're doing. Patrick, do you have any final questions or thoughts as we start to wrap up?
There's one that I tend to ask a lot of our guests. You've walked many thousands of miles or hiked. I know that's different than walking. Is there like a perfect, beautiful, awe-inspiring moment, or you come across the crest of a hill and there's like this gorgeous sunset or something that is like absolutely magical, and it taps you on your heart and it says like, heck yes, this is where you're supposed to be. Keep on going.
Yeah,
Something like that.
I've definitely had a bunch of those moments. It'd be hard to continue doing it if I wasn't, feeling that still. A moment that's coming to mind is when I was hiking the Hayduke route in 2022. I was in the Grand Canyon, but the Grand Canyon is a vast, massive place that you could never see all of. Most people just see the main corridor, but the Hayduke takes you down some of the lesser traveled avenues of the Grand Canyon. And there's one place, it's called the Nankweep Ruins, or the Nankweep Granaries. And it's not very often visited, but when you get down there, it's at the bottom of the canyon along the Colorado. And there are these, ancient, hundreds and hundreds of years old. Granaries used by the indigenous people. I think it was like almost 800 years ago. Don't quote me on that number. But they're way high up along the canyon wall. They had created these, sort of like granary caves where they were storing grains. And, you have to climb up so high just to even get to them. And they put them up that high so that, there's different reasons, but so that they were hard to get to, easy to defend if you had to. There's a few different reasons why you might do that. But when you climb up there, you have this insane view of the Colorado River. And I just remember feeling, as sunset when I was up there and feeling so connected, not just, feeling connected to all the people who had been there over the centuries before that. And all the, like the Grand Canyon is essentially its own little universe down there. It's a place where I find so much connection, not only with nature, but with all the people who have come before. And you feel like you can feel the footsteps that you're walking on are ones that have been tread many, many times before. And so, yeah, it just brings me a big sense of peace and connection.
That's amazing. Love it. Love it. Love it. Do you, as we're wrapping up, do you have any final thoughts or words of encouragement or anything that you would like to leave with our listeners as we start to wrap up this podcast and let you get back out on the trail?
Yeah, I think, what I want people to know is that, I want people to be able to reach out to me. I'm very accessible, especially like on Instagram. If you're a queer trans person and the outdoors and you're interested in hiking, you have questions, you have concerns, or if you just want to know somebody else who's out there doing this kind of stuff, shoot me a message. I hope that I can be a resource for people, not just like from a, mentoring program standpoint, but, like I said, I also do this stuff because it benefits me. It allows me to feel more connection within the queer and trans community. Yeah, like I like making new friends, and I get so much out of it as well. So I do hope that people feel comfortable reaching out to me.
Love that. And how can people find you? What social media, website, anything that you would like to share? And we'll put this in the show notes so that people can find it as well. But where can people connect with you?
So Instagram is the best way. My Instagram handle is Seltzer Skelter. So like seltzer, like the drink, and then skelter, like helter skelter. And that's the best way. And then I also have a YouTube that I really haven't. I have so much footage that I just don't have time or the internet connection to go through and post all of it right now. But I will after my hike's over. I'll go through and post videos. And my username for that is Sugar Hikes 726.
Awesome. So I will make sure to put her Instagram handle, and she's got an epic link tree as well with all sorts of interviews and maps and profiles and like just all the stuff that I think would just start to scratch the surface of all of Lyla's amazing adventures. But yeah, that'll be down in the show notes.
Yeah. Lyla, thank you so much for taking the time out to join us to celebrate Pride Month, to celebrate hikers being different, getting out there, being an inspiration to our community for sure. So we have genuinely appreciated you being on our podcast, and hopefully we can run into you someday out on the trail.
I would love that. Yeah, thank you both for having me on. It's been really fun.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in for another episode of the LGBT Outdoors podcast. We hope that everybody is having a safe and amazing Pride Month. And until next time, get out there. Thank you again for joining us this week. If you have a campfire conversation story you would like to share, please email it to us at info@lgbtoutdoors.com. Follow us on Instagram at LGBT Outdoors and join the community at facebook.com/groups/LGBT Outdoors. Become a partner by joining our Patreon, where you'll gain access to monthly bonus stories and exclusive content. For more information on today's episode, check out the show notes. For information about LGBT Outdoors, LGBT Outdoor Fest, local chapters, or to sign up for our newsletter, visit lgbtoutdoors.com. And if you're enjoying the show, please rate, review, and follow wherever you listen to podcasts.